Hi, it's Louise at Spiral Bright Insight. This video is more astrology focused. I want to talk about oppositional energy and how we can use it in our chart to kind of step into more of who we are meant to be. Obviously my work is galactic astrology, but also soul astrology. So I'm always looking at, what are you here to do? What are you here to be? What energies are you working with in this lifetime so that you can fulfill your potential? And I've looked at oppositional energy in the chart really since I started doing the soul readings. But I've had a little bit more insight of late. So I thought it would be interesting to share it with you. Everything in this amazing sort of human experience is kind of, well, it feels like it's set out in layers. So especially when it comes to information and insight, things just kind of peel back. There's layer after layer after layer, and you can kind of go deeper and deeper and deeper, which is kind of what I feel I'm doing. I think we all are. But there's always more to learn, there's always more to explore, and there's always more that's going to come through. So obviously this channel, it's really a way for me to kind of share what I'm learning and what's coming through to me. It also helps me, as I've got Gemini midheaven, to articulate and to communicate and to talk through. So if you are here and this is kind of what you're interested in, it's great to have you here, and thank you so much for commenting and all of that. It means a lot. So what do I mean by oppositional energy? When I'm taking it in the context, certainly in the solar astrology, of basing it around the sun. Because, if you know much about astrology, you will know, we have 12 houses in the chart. There are 12 signs, and each sign has a sign sitting opposite it on the wheel, and that also works for the houses. So, you're looking at, with Aries, the opposing sign is Libra, and in a traditional chart, obviously you would have the first house opposing the seventh house. Then that plays out Taurus opposing Scorpio, Gemini, Sagittarius, Cancer, Capricorn, Leo, Aquarius, and Virgo, Pisces. And I will talk about the sun in a second, but obviously when we are looking at the nodes, we always look at the north and the south node, which are sitting in opposing parts of the chart. And with the nodal energy, although the north node is about our soul growth and our evolution and where our soul wants us to grow and to evolve and to expand into more of ourselves and more of our mission, we can not sort of turn our backs on or forget about the energy of the south node. And really it is about finding that middle ground, meeting in the middle and balancing the two out, because that is where the magic lies. So as I said, with the charts that I have, or readings I've been doing, I have always looked at the sun sign, the sun location, its sign, where it is in the chart in relation to other planets and aspects, the degree point, if that sort of talks to me. But because the sun is where we sort of shine the most brightest in this life. But where there is light, a lot of light, there has to be shadow. Because there cannot be just light. So I've always taken the view that the sun casts a shadow into the opposing part of the chart. And this is why I'm talking about oppositional energy, because where we have a bright light of the sun in one sign and one house, we potentially then have a little bit of shadow or an area of life or an energy that you are not as comfortable with. It might create a little bit of unease, a bit of the ick factor, something that you probably need to work through, but it doesn't come naturally, and it can feel like, oh, I'd rather just, avoid that, turn my back, not look at it, for example. I'm going to talk about my chart and how that sort of plays out for me in a second. But what has become really obvious to me over the past even just a few weeks, this is coming through, is that that area of the chart, that energy, that part of your life that part of the chart rules, is really something that you have to look at. And if you have got the guts and the courage and the determination and tenacity to be able to look at it, it is actually a route or a path to you, and the wholeness of you, the fullness of you. It is almost like, I wouldn't say it's a portal, but it's like a big sort of clue, you know, ding dong, I'm here in the chart, which is kind of saying, you know, this is what you need to kind of step into, explore, acknowledge and embrace if you are to, kind of evolve. And move into a more fully integrated version of you. So I'll give you an example. I have a 5th house Aquarian sun. So that means that the shadow in my chart falls in the sign of Leo, and it falls into my 11th house. Now, if we take the houses to start with, each house rules a certain part of the chart. The 5th house is about creativity. It's about fun. It's about rebirthing something new. It rules children. And, you know, certainly, you know, having got over a few blocks earlier in my life, I do, you know, I embrace my creative self. I love working with children and being with children. And I do find that when I'm with sort of younger beings, you know, yeah, it just, everything lights up. I just love their energy. So, you know, that makes 100% sense to me. In the 11th house, in the opposite part of the chart, that is more about your social life, you know, big kind of friendship groups. It is about the collective and humanity as well, but at a more personal level, you know, the way the shadow in the 11th house has played out for me is that I do experience social anxiety. I much prefer kind of with my friendships being in small groups or even one-to-one. I find I get a lot more out of that sort of dynamic. You know, I feel like I get lost in groups sometimes, and, you know, as an empath and somebody who absorbs and is very sensitive to energy of my surroundings, you know, I often find it difficult to be in very busy spaces or, you know, big parties. I'm fine when I get there. This is the frustrating thing, but I can really get, you know, really work myself up before I go. So I would say that to me plays out, you know, 100%. If we look at the energy of Leo in opposition to Aquarius, and of course this is very relevant now because we've got Pluto and the Sun in Aquarius, we've got our full moon in Leo tomorrow. So I think this is probably why it's coming through really strongly, is that, you know, for me, the Leo energy, I've always found a little bit, not challenging, but I've just a little bit off-putting, if I'm completely honest. Not that I've got anything against Leo people or people with strong Leo in their chart, quite the opposite, as I'm going to explain. But, you know, I've always thought people that, you know, I perceive to be really full of themselves, you know, really showy, show off, you know, flamboyant, dramatic, extravagant. I've always been a bit like, you know, I'm not sure about that. And, you know, it's almost been a bit too much for me. But what has really kind of, it's like, you know, things click into place, don't they? I was talking to a friend fairly recently, and, you know, I was saying, oh, I don't really like people that are really full of themselves and kind of know-it-alls. And he said, have you heard what you just said? Like full of themselves, full of yourself. And I was like, oh God, yeah. Part of my reason for being here, and this applies to us all really, and I think the full moon is going to help with this, but you know, for me as an individual, I need to become more full of myself. And I don't mean, you know, I'm not like, you know, all like, oh, I know it all, you know, kind of, you know, look at me, aren't I great type of energy, but just step into more of myself, shine more brightly, shine my light, which is a very Leo energy being ruled by the sun. And, through that, I've become much more integrated. So it's like that opposing energy, which I've always called the shadow, is actually a pathway or a route to me becoming more of myself. Obviously, I love the Aquarian energy, but I need to step into more of the Leo and find that middle point. So it is always about, as well, embracing the higher expressions of each energy in each sign, because each sign has a lower expression and a higher expression. So it's about stepping into the higher expression of my Aquarian sun and the Leo in the opposing chart. And of course, what is happening? I mean, if we take my personal kind of journey, obviously I've been a galactic astrologer and certified as, it'll be 2 years in July. And over this time, I've had to overcome a huge amount of resistance to put myself out. Doing something like this has not come naturally. But, the more I step into that Leo energy and start to shine bright and sort of, share more of who I am and what I know and, kind of why I'm here. And the more I connect with, the 11th house, it's not just friendships and social events. It is about humanity. It's about the collective. It's about using technology as well. It's very Uranian, very futuristic, very galactic. The more I step into that kind of galactic arena, the more I kind of share more with the collective, connect with people more through the internet, using technology. Things are starting to come online like they have never done before. And it is just, things are falling into place. I don't take that for granted. I am so grateful. But I just feel like I've found my niche. I've found what I'm supposed to be doing. And it feels really good. It feels right. And it's such a relief to have that, because, I feel like I've been searching for a long time. But that's an example of how this kind of oppositional energy is played out for me. So that's quite a personal share. But certainly in the chart, wherever you're looking, wherever your sun is, it might be interesting for you to look at that oppositional energy, and it isn't about, oppositions do create that, push pull. It can be really tense. You've got one pulling one way, the opposing force pulling the other way, and it does create tension, but it also is about growth, and it is about being able to meet in the middle and find that middle ground. Just come into a more sort of sense of presence and stillness and centeredness, because again, that is something that has come up time and time again. So when you are able to fuse and blend and merge both these energies together, that is when, hopefully the magic starts to happen. Because really, if we can feel more full and more whole within ourselves, we release the wound of separation, which, in my opinion, is the cause of so much fear and so much aggression and division in our world. So when we become whole within ourselves, that separation sort of dissolves, releases, is transmuted, and what comes through is a lot more self-love and a lot more just integration and being here, being full, being yourself is really what we're here to do and achieve and be. Shouldn't use the word achieve, but that is what we're here to be, more, the full version of ourselves. And of course, when we step into that, we then shift the frequency of what we're projecting out, and our outer world will always reflect our inner world. So when we are full and centered and no longer separate within ourselves, our reality shifts to reflect that back. Now, I just found it really interesting because obviously, in the spiritual community, and we talk about unity consciousness a lot. And what does that mean? Again, I've been reflecting on that because, there's no denying we are living in and have lived in a very polarized, dualistic and divided world and society for, as long as we can remember. And it has got worse the last few years. There's always a new thing that's coming up to sort of divide opinion and, you're right, oh, you're wrong, I'm right, you know, and it's become increasingly difficult, you know, for opposing beliefs systems in particular to kind of meet in the middle. But it's like, this is actually, we're not trying to kind of come together so that we are all thinking the same way and behaving the same way and being the same way. In the Aquarian age, which is where we're moving into, it is very much about each individual has an individual gift, you know, something that they're here to do, something that makes them special, and, you know, their energy is unique. Every person's energy is unique, and it is about bringing all those strands of unique brilliance together to create the whole, that everybody has something to contribute. I've talked about the rainbow quite a lot recently. It's the same analogy. Each colour of the rainbow has its place, and without one of them, you know, you don't have a full rainbow. So it's very much about coming together and losing that fear of anything that is different or anybody that is different, you know, and rather than turning our back and going, oh no, I'm not sure about that, you know, it's the same in the chart. You know, if there is shadow that creates fear, you know, it's easy to just, you know, turn your back, sort of push it down, you know, ignore. But, you know, that is not what this whole shift is about. It is about moving into a space where, you know, we don't need to agree with people, but we shouldn't create that to be a problem or an issue. It's about coming into this kind of unified sort of way where, you know, everybody is unique, but we're all you know, moving along together in harmony. I guess you could also call it harmony, and because, you know, that has been lacking in our world for so long. So again, you know, it feels like, obviously, astrology is just one modality, it's just one thing, it's something that I'm passionate about, but it feels like, you know, there is a key here to unlocking, you know, one route towards unity and integration. And that is through the oppositions in the chart. So I would be really interested to hear what you think, if you agree, if you've experienced that before. Obviously, it's something I look at when I do my readings. It's something that I'm going to look at more. It works certainly for the nodes. I've always looked at that. I would imagine it would work for the moon as well as the sun, and potentially, you know, in other aspects and planets. But certainly with this full moon in Leo that we've got tomorrow, and the fact that we've got strong Aquarian energy being activated, you know, it is, the themes are very very relevant and prevalent right now. So yeah, I'm not surprised it's been coming through quite strongly. But as always, take what, you know, what resonates, use your discernment. You know, we all have different approaches, and everything is interpretation. There is no one sort of, you know, this is how it is. In astrology, there's so many different interpretations and levels to everything. So thank you so much for watching. I'm Louise at Spiral Bright Insight. Find me on my website, spiralbright.co.uk, and I will be back soon. There's so much to share.